Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we delve into the chilling tale of one of history's most infamous female serial killers, Belle Gunness. Prepare yourselves as we unravel the horrifying crimes that left a trail of darkness in her wake. If you're ready to dive deep into the captivating world of crime, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our community of curious minds. Together, we'll uncover the mysteries, challenge the norms, and ultimately seek a deeper understanding of the human condition. Thank you once again for being here. Get ready for an unforgettable adventure. Let's begin. Unveiling the dark legacy. The crimes of Belle Gunness. Belle Gunness, Hell's Belle, was a Norwegian, American serial killer who was active in Illinois and Indiana between 1884 and 1984 and 1908. Gunness is thought to have killed at least 14 people, most of whom were men she enticed to visit her rural Indiana property through personal advertisements, while some sources speculate her involvement in as many as 40 murders, making her one of the most prolific female serial killers in history. Gunness seemingly died in a fire in 1908, but it is popularly believed that she faked her death. Her actual fate is unconfirmed. Belle Gunness was born in Norway on November 11, 1859. She was the youngest of 8 children. She was confirmed at the Church of Norway in 1874. At age 14, Gunness began working for neighboring farms by milking and herding cattle to save enough money for the journey to New York City. She moved to the United States in 1881. When she was processed by immigration at Castle Garden, she changed her first name to Bella, then traveled to Chicago to join her sister, Nellie, who had immigrated several years earlier. In Chicago, while living with her sister and brother-in-law, Gunness worked as a domestic servant, then got a job at a butcher shop cutting up animal carcasses. She was at least 5'7", 170 chem, tall, and weighed around 95, 113 kg, 210, 250 lbs, and was physically strong and masculine in appearance. Gunness married maids Ditlev Anton in 1884. The couple owned a candy store, which later burned to the ground. Their home had also burned down, and both instances granted the couple insurance payouts. 2 babies in Gunness' home died from inflammation of the large intestine, which can result from poisoning. Gunness had insured both of the children and collected a large insurance check after each death. Neighbors gossiped about the babies since Gunness never appeared to be pregnant. Ditlev Anton had purchased 2 life insurance policies. On July 30, 1900, both policies were active at the same time, as one would expire that day and the other would enter into force. Ditlev Anton died of cerebral hemorrhage that day. Gunness explained he had come home with a headache and she provided him with quinine powder for the pain. She later checked on him, and he was dead. Gunness collected money from both the expiring life insurance policy and the one that went into effect that day, making a total of $5,000. With the insurance money, she moved to LaPorte, Indiana, and bought a pig farm. Belle Gunness married Peter Gunness on April 1, 1902. The following week, while Peter was out of the house, his infant daughter died of unknown causes in Belle's care. Peter died 8 months later due to a skull injury. Belle explained that Peter reached for something on a high shelf and a meat grinder fell on him, smashing his skull. The district coroner convened a coroner's jury, suspecting murder, but nothing came of the case. Belle collected $3,000 insurance money for Peter's death. Peter died 8 months later due to a skull injury. Belle explained that Peter reached for something on a high shelf and a meat grinder fell on him, smashing his skull. The district coroner convened a coroner's jury, suspecting murder, but nothing came of the case. Belle collected $3,000 insurance money for Peter's death. Gunness began placing marriage ads in Chicago newspapers in 1905. One of her ads was answered by a Wisconsin farmhand, Henry Gerholt, after traveling to LaPorte. Gerholt wrote his family, saying that he liked the farm, was in good health, and requesting that they send him seed potatoes. When they failed to hear from him after that, the family contacted Gunness. She told them Gerholt had gone off with horse traders to Chicago. She kept his trunk and fur overcoat. John Moe of Minnesota answered Gunness's ad in 1906. After they had corresponded for several months, Moe traveled to LaPorte and withdrew a large amount of cash, although no one ever saw Moe again. A carpenter who did occasional work for Gunness observed that Moe's trunk remained in her house, along with more than a dozen others. And criminal activities came to light in April 1908, when the Gunness farmhouse in LaPorte, Indiana, burned to the ground. In the ruins, authorities found the bodies of a headless adult woman, initially identified as Belle Gunness, and her 3 children. Further investigation unearthed the partial remains of at least 11 additional people on the Gunness property. After the fire at the Gunness homestead led to the discovery of bodies believed to be Gunness and her children, LaPorte police authorities were contacted by Asa Helgelian, who had found correspondence between his brother, Andrew Helgelian, and Gunness. The letters included petitions for him to relocate to LaPorte, to bring money, and to keep the move a secret. A visit by Asa Helgelian to the Gunness farm with a former hired hand led to attention being paid to soft depressions in what had been made into a pen for hogs. After briefly digging one of the depressions in the lot, a gunny sack was found that contained 2 hands, 2 feet, and 1 head, which Helgelian recognized to be those of his brother. Immediate inspection of the site revealed that there were dozens of such slump depressions in the Gunness yard, and further digging and investigation at the site yielded multiple burlap sacks containing torsos and hands, arms hacked from the shoulders down, masses of human bone wrapped in loose flesh that dripped like jelly from trash, covered depressions that proved to be graves. In each case, the body had been butchered in the same manner. The body decapitated, the arms removed at the shoulders, and the legs severed at the knees. Blunt trauma and gashes characterized the skulls that were found that had been separated from the bodies. After finding the parts of 5 bodies on the first day, and an additional 6 on the second, some in shallow graves under the original hog pen, others near an outhouse or a lake, the police stopped counting. With these discoveries, the perceptions of Belle Gunness, as reported in newspaper descriptions of a praiseworthy woman dying in the fire that consumed her house in a desperate attempt to save her children, reassessed. Despite the initial success with the identification of Andrew Helgalian, and despite the fact that widening news coverage of the mass murders invited inquiries from families with men that had gone missing, most of the remains could not be identified. Ray Lamphere was Gunness' hired hand and off lover. In November 1908, Lamphere was convicted of arson in connection with the fire at Gunness's house. Lamphere later confessed that Gunness had placed advertisements seeking male companionship only to murder and rob the men who responded and subsequently visited her on the farm. Lamphere stated that Gunness asked him to burn down the farmhouse with her children inside. Lamphere also asserted that the body thought to be Gunness's was in fact a murder victim, chosen and planted to mislead investigators. The brother of one victim had warned Gunness that he might arrive at the farm shortly to investigate his brother's disappearance. According to Lamphere, this impending visit motivated Gunness to destroy her house, fake her own death, and flee. When Lamphere was arrested, he was wearing John Moe's overcoat and Henry Gerholt's watch. In the confession, Lamphere said that he had killed Mrs. Gunness and children with an axe, sprinkled the bodies with kerosene, and set fire to them and the house. It gave details of the slaying and told of his part in the former murders, which occurred at the Gunness farm, his task usually being the burying of the bodies in the garden. The essential fact, however, was that the murderess was not alive as a fugitive. The publication of Lamphere's confession resulted in the subsequent arrest of his accomplice Elizabeth Smith. The inconsistencies between the two confessions, including the matter of the survival of Belle Gunness, remain historical issues that are not fully resolved. Belle Gunness was pronounced dead, even though the doctor who performed the postmortem testified that the headless body was 5 inches shorter and about 50 pounds lighter than Gunness. No explanation was provided for what happened to the body's head. Whether Gunness died in the fire or escaped remained uncertain, although the sheriff blamed a Chicago American reporter for inventing the escaped story. Reported sightings of Gunness in the Chicago area continued long after she was declared dead. At the time, police looked into reports of women suspected to be Belle, none of which led to her apprehension. In 2008, DNA tests were performed on the headless corpse in an attempt to compare the DNA in the corpse against a sample from a letter Gunness had sent to one of her victims, but due to its age, the sample was not able to be properly tested. After Gunness' crimes came to light, the Gunness farm became a tourist attraction. Spectators came from across the country to see the mass graves, and concessions and souvenirs were sold. Moreover, the crime became an acknowledged part of area history. The LaPorte County Historical Society Museum has a permanent Belle Gunness exhibit. Gunness has also been the subject of at least 2 American musical ballads. Method, a 2004 film starring Elizabeth Hurley as Rebecca, who is portraying Gunness in a film within the film, being shot in Romania. In 2017, True Crime podcast's My Favorite Murder performed and later released a live episode detailing Gunness's crime. The Farm, a 2020 one-film starring Tracy Lords, is based on the Belle Gunness story. In the Garden of Spite, a novel of the Black Widow of LaPorte, is a Us, published 2021 novel by Camilla Bruce, with elements of Norwegian noir and true crime, based on the life of Belle Gunness. It was published in the UK with the title Triflers Need Not Apply. My Men, a 2020 Norwegian novel by Victoria Kieland, is a fictionalized version of Gunness's life. Hell's Princess. The Mystery of Belle Gunness, Butcher of Men, is a 2018 non-fiction book by Harold Schechter on the life of Belle Gunness. Thank you for joining us today on this exploration of the crimes of Belle Gunness. As we continue to shed light on the darkest corners of human history, may we strive to learn from these horrors and work towards a future where such atrocities are never repeated.